welcome to The Road to. We have a good show lined up for you today. No guests, but we have our annual prediction show. With the upcoming elections on Tuesday, this is going to be fun, so please keep watching. I'm going to introduce our panel first. James Parmelee. James, you want to tell us about yourself, and welcome back. It's been a little while.
Thanks. I run the Northern Virginia Republican PAC and Republicans United for Tax Relief. I host a few shows on this station and a few others. Basically, I've been opposed. Oh, that's the prediction show. I was going to talk about opposing the Fairfax County meals tax, but we'll wait for the prediction.
We'll wait for that. Yeah.
That'll be a big
Thank
surprise.
You. And John Flannery, representing the progressive liberal side.
Yeah, that's me. I'm here sort of like in a Marvel comic to defend as Dr. Strange against the barbarians at the gate encapsulated in the Trump campaign. I'm a former federal prosecutor, so I've been particularly interested in recent days watching the denigration of the FBI and the Justice Department and handling and interfering in a presidential election. And in recent days, I am an elected member of the Soil and Water Conservation District in Loudoun County. And I make my living representing the abused and misunderstood in court.
Okay, good to have you.
Thank you.
And to my immediate right, Mike Lane.
Yeah, I'm not one of the barbarians at the gate. However, I am a deplorable at the gate. So moving on from there, our regular viewers will remember that I'm our token inside the Beltway representative here on the show. I cut my teeth on local politics in Arlington County. Was once upon a time sentenced to a term of service on the Arlington County Board. Fortunately, the voters awakened my next cycle and gave me a lot of time to do other things. I've since moved to Alexandria, and I spend most of my time trying to figure out how to get the intelligent elephants elected to office.
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And to my immediate left, on the left a bit,
Yeah.
Stevens Miller.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be here, Marlene. Mike, you're not the deplorable. She said that half of his supporters were in a basket of deplorables, and that's we.
So which of us is the deplorable?
It's a matter of relativity, but like Mike, I did a term of service that was on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. The voters didn't deprive me of a second term. I decided to deprive them, so I keep waiting for them to tell me how much they miss me. And as soon as that happens, I might run again. But so far they haven't been able to find where I live, so maybe a while ago.
Good to have you back, Stevens. And I didn't introduce myself. I'm Marlene Wecker, Barney, your host for today. Usually I'm an analyst, but Patty Morrissey is taking a short leave of absence and having a good time, and hope she's back to vote. All right, so we're going to get right into it with kind of a question that's a little bit old news, but still a little interesting, and that's the 3 presidential debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. What do you think about that? Who do you think won? And actually, should any of the independent candidates been allowed on stage? John, we'll start with you.
Well, let me take the last part. When you said the independent candidates, all I thought of was Steve Johnson, who's kind of a pothead with bad memory, or just a pothead, I'm not sure. And he was such a miserable performer in the interviews that I suppose the more that people knew about him, the less qualified he was. But they didn't have a sufficient percentage to be included in the public debates of the 3 that we saw. I thought Hillary won all 3, and I don't say that just because I already was a supporter of her. It seemed to me that Trump could listen to his advisors for the first 20 minutes or so, and then he lost control each time. Yeah, he had cold. He has a nose problem of some sort. And so I thought that Trump lost those, and I kind of wish that those debates were closer to the actual election instead of the misconduct by Comey and company in the final days before the election.
Right. Yeah. And Jim?
Well, I thought Trump did well in the debates, and part of it was, by being on the same stage, showed the clear difference between the 2 candidates. And from an issues perspective, Donald Trump lines up more, I believe, with the American people. Now the question is, you've got all the other charges from both sides flying around and all of that. And then, of course, the media jumping on after each debate and then trying to respin it in their favor, in the favor of Hillary. But when you mentioned Comey's misconduct, I'm amazed. If you were my lawyer and I was subpoenaed, would you advise me to immediately start deleting all my emails?
I think we should keep this conversation for a little bit
That's what they
later
call
in
a
the show.
pivot these days.
I'm not going
to answer that question.
If there's a problem with Comey following up on a legitimate investigation, then certainly there's a problem with Hillary Clinton deleting the evidence in the face of a subpoena.
Okay, but let's
let me
stick to
answer
that.
it. Let me
Let's-
answer
wait a
it.
minute.
Let me
Mike, we
answer
could
while
just
he
go
brought
again.
it
They're
up.
not gonna need us,
Let me
so.
answer it while he brought it up as a guy who's actually done this. I am
bar
a
open yet?
I am a former
you're
federal
as my
prosecutor.
lawyer, would
yes.
you? Yes.
And as a
If you were my
lawyer
lawyer.
and as a prosecutor, I like prosecutors who only talk publicly when they have a charge.
But if
We're
you were
gonna-
my
and
lawyer,
you do not
if you were my lawyer-
announce that you have an investigation when you have no evidence
We're
that
going
there's a
to,
need for
We're
we're
gonna
one.
get back
going
to
to
that.
table this discussion. We're talking about the debates right now,
Okay.
so no
But we're
pivoting.
debating.
Okay, all right. So, Stevens,
Oh, well,
do you have a
know,
voice of reason?
never.
Never.
She slandered both of us.
The two winners were Bill Clinton and the internet. The internet because you didn't have to watch it on television, and it was a lot more fun to be able to stream it, and you could watch it on your phone while you were driving or doing your makeup or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And Bill, and I see people do this out on the greenway
Yeah,
every morning.
unfortunately.
And Bill Clinton, when he came out after that vulgar display that Trump tried to use to steal the moment with the accusers, the sort of pseudo press conference that he staged, he still came out, shook hands with the Trump family, and showed that he was a classy guy when he was trying to be made the victim of another, media circus stunt that fortunately they reported but didn't fall for. So other than that, I think it was just a dead loss for everybody.
And Mike,
Yeah, if you want to look at it in terms of a classic college debate where you're awarding points for things here and things there, I think Hillary did well. She's been at this for more than 30 years. Trump is a rookie at that kind of stuff. So I would say
So let's
Hillary,
make him president.
And I would say
We want the
Hillary,
inexperienced
did well.
guy who doesn't know anything.
But if you measure
Let him talk.
but if you measure it by the impact on the campaigns, I think as we look at it today, nobody's making up their mind based on what they heard in the debates. They're making up their minds based on what they are seeing going on in the campaigns.
I
What
don't
about
know.
the-
You
what
know,
about
that
the
tape
body?
recording, it seems to me, had something to do with what women thought of Mr. Trump in terms of groping women and
what he
feeling
thought of that.
that without their consent he could grab them
Well,
and kiss
again,
them on the
this
mouth. A
wasn't the
disgusting
debate.
image for any woman, I'm sure.
This wasn't the debate, but you do bring
That
up
wasn't
an
the
interesting
debate.
question
That
about
wasn't the
about
debate.
women's reaction, and that was the body
I'm
language
curious as to what
through
women's
the whole
reactions
thing.
were to the women who had been abused by Bill Clinton, who were at the debate, who we've evidently here just dismissed as a, I don't know, circus
Well,
act or whatever.
yeah,
it was.
As a woman,
circus
as
act.
the only
Women who
in
were
the group,
actually
I think
abused by him.
I
Some would say
kind
they
of
were.
thought
As far
that
as we
was
know.
a tacky move on the Trump campaign's part.
They were abused
So
by
we don't want to
Trump.
hear from
To
the
have-
victims?
Well, they're not running against.
Well, they weren't part
Bill
of
Clinton's
the
not running for
debate.
anything,
They
Jim.
weren't debating.
Well, you
I mean,
want to
they
put
were
them in the East
sitting-
Wing.
They were sitting in the
He's gonna pick out
one
curtains.
time up
Why are
in
you
the front
concerned?
row of the balcony or something, I think. But that was just simply there to try. To me, it was a tacky move to try and rattle.
So we don't want to
Hillary's
hear from the
case.
victims of Bill Clinton's sexual assaults.
Well,
Not
Bill
when the
Clinton
race is
not
between
running.
Mr. Trump and
Just
Ms.
checking.
Ms. Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, but what about the
Actually,
kind of
it's more the
stalkiness?
victims of Hillary's smear job.
What
Right.
about the kind of stalkiness
And
or
she
creepiness
dismissed
of
them.
Donald Trump
I
following
didn't know you
Hillary
guys were
around
against
the
women as much as you
state?
are. You're prepared
I'm
to
just
use
a little,
women.
I'm just a little surprised. I'm a little
Yeah,
surprised
she's not the
that you guys
Secretary
are
of State.
blowing
She's
off,
simply the former
blowing
wife
off
or the
these
wife of a
serious
former
charges.
president, and that's what's important.
I
That's
think
what
you guys are
defines her.
both misogynists. I hadn't thought that until we came here today.
But
Let's-
Hillary
let's
Clinton was the
move
one.
on.
Well,
Okay,
that
we're
would put me
moving
back
on.
in the deplorable column, I think.
Well, but you
so-
put
room for
yourself
both
in
of
the
you.
close to the. Well, you're not deplorable. You're a nice guy, and
Let's move on.
Your decorum.
This is a little bit
Decorum
more
challenge.
current.
I was going to say you had.
Last week, James Comey sent a letter to Congress. I think the Republicans got it first, but the case
Rudy
was
Giuliani
being,
had it first.
No.
He probably wrote it.
No,
I
no, no,
think,
it was-
yeah.
Actually, 2
Hold
days
it.
before.
The letter,
Well,
it
wait,
was
let me-
CC. It was CC
let
to
me
the
finish the
Democrats also.
question.
It was
They got
delivered
it at
by
the same time.
pigeons.
Okay, Richard Painter, who is
Yeah.
a former ethics lawyer, I believe appointed by George W. Bush, wrote a piece in the New York Times contending that Comey violated the Hatch Act. when he sent the letter to Congress saying that the FBI was examining new emails as part of actually an investigation of Anthony Weiner found on the
Why
their
do I always
laptop.
cringe when I hear that
It
guy?
was,
well, we all
I
do.
know, and that this was all a part of tied to, they were emails because they were somehow tied to the server. We don't know what emails, we don't know if they were to Secretary Clinton, from Secretary Clinton, or mentioned her name. We still don't know that, but in
Well, that's
any
because
case,
he hadn't read them when he made
the
the scribbling
Hatch Act forbids
following
federal
the law.
employees.
Yeah, for a change.
The Hatch Act forbids federal employees from using their authority to affect or influence the results of an election. And Harry Reid and others thought that he had violated the Hatch Act. Richard Painter thought that he had violated that Comey had violated the Hatch Act.
Well,
So you
Uh,
guys
so
would
what
have
do you
been in
think
favor of
about
covering
this?
up the
and
emails?
I'm calling on you, James, first.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like you're suggesting that he would have been better off covering up the emails.
Oh, come on.
Well, you
No,
have
it's a
two
fallacy
choices.
of the
You
middle,
have
Jim.
two
You're not that
choices.
dumb.
You have two
Let him
choices.
speak.
He was called before Congress to testify on this investigation. He gave the Congress information on the investigation. That information changed. He had two choices: update Congress on his testimony, or cover it up until after the election.
He had another choice. He never
there
should
were-
have been before Congress talking about an investigation that hadn't resulted in
He
charge.
should have refused to.
He should have
refused to speak
refused.
before-
Exactly.
Well, I know in
Exactly.
Clinton world that avoiding that.
No, it's not the
refusing
Clinton world. No,
subpoenas,
it happens to be the
refusing
law.
subpoenas,
It
destroying
happens to
evidence
be
in
the
advance,
law.
in-
It happens to
when
be
you
the
have a
law.
subpoena in front of
It
you.
happens to be the law that you do not testify about an investigation. The only thing an investigator in the Justice Department is permitted to do is to file a complaint or an indictment, and then there are ethics rules strictly constricting what they may talk about at all. And it usually is, this is the charge, and these are the penalties, and then they have to shut up.
Did you all bring
do-
that up at when he originally
I did. Yes, I did.
did the press conference
I
on
did.
it? Because when he originally did it, Harry Reid and friends were overjoyed with it, even though
I don't
he
work for
came
Harry
out-
Reid.
Even though he came out
I
and
am a
said,
citizen of the United States who was a federal prosecutor who thinks this is a shame and a disgrace what Comey has done consistently, and to be told that he's under such pressure that he
so
doesn't
if
do
your
his
client-
job
if
But
your
John,
right.
he's
client
not
gives-
consistent
if
about
your
it. When the
client-
press asked
Wait.
him about the investigation FBI is conducting into the Trump email systems, they point out their policy of not commenting on open investigations. So for Mr. Trump, they play it by the book. For Ms. Clinton, they decide they're going to make a public statement.
And so you can understand it, it's entirely partisan, which means he is interfering, which gives some support to what Painter says, which he intended to affect an election. End of story.
Calls for an
So if there's a
investigation.
person who should be investigated,
It is a
it's
shame.
Mr.
It
Comey.
is a shame that Comey didn't follow the evidence
It's
in the
a
first
shame.
place and arrest
No,
Hillary
no. He
Clinton.
followed the
Arrest
evidence,
Hillary
and he
Clinton in the
couldn't put
first
together a
place.
case.
Because he
And he
had
couldn't
the
put together a
evidence,
case against
and
the president. And he released
pointed out-
information about both cases that were
government-
frivolous
the
and
government
unsupported.
brings the hammer
And
down
that
on
is
plenty of other
misconduct.
people. The
He should
government
be
brings
fired.
the hammer down on plenty of other people with security clearances in the
Oh,
government
are we talking
who
about
do
people's-
less than what Hillary Clinton
No, that's not
did.
true.
So
If
she
you
got
act-
the special,
have you read the
she got the
statute?
special
Have you read
treatment.
the statute?
I don't have to read the statute to
Well,
watch.
no, actually, that's the law.
to
You see,
the
you read the
other
statute
people.
Typical
and then
Republican. I don't have to know the rules to
Hold it.
point out someone's
to see
violated.
other
it.
people
Why don't you
who have
cite the
done less
Constitution?
were arrested. Other people who have done less
No,
are
no,
have lost their
no.
security
And in
clearance.
fact, Comey, whom I consider the enemy and a partisan in this case, cited the fact that other people had not been prosecuted for
and others have.
much more.
And others have.
And the
been
facts are
prosecuted
different in
for
every
much
case.
less.
You
And
see,
the
that's
facts
what
are
matters, Jim, is the actual facts. And when
Right.
Comey had them,
The
made
actual
his
facts
decision,
that
you
she,
don't,
the
and
actual
you're making
fact.
it up.
Well, here's what we do know. Or do you deny that she did not deleted thousands, tens of
That is
thousands
not
of
a
emails
crime.
after?
That
she
is
had
not a
subpoena.
crime.
She
It
had a
is not a
subpoena.
crime.
Turn over the evidence.
Why hasn't somebody
the
indicted
first
her?
thing you do is delete the evidence.
It's not a crime. I'm sorry. You want it to be a crime. You want to say
Okay,
that he
I'm
released
making a note,
information.
If I'm ever subpoenaed in an investigation, if you're my lawyer, you will tell me to delete the evidence.
Well, that'll be
well,
covered
you know,
by the lawyer
in a mischievous
client
way, I
privilege,
might
but-
tell you to
Just
delete.
make it
Yeah,
a
go
note.
ahead, delete
So
the
everybody
evidence.
out there, I guess we should
I'll
put that
stand
this
there
is
at your
not legal
arraignment.
advice across the screen.
Stevens, do you think that Comey should have been asked to resign, let's put it that way.
Well, I won't
back
be-
in, do you think back in July? When
I
he
won't be
first
shocked
came
if he
up?
turns in his resignation sometime before the end of the year, should he be asked to. No, there's a reason why the FBI director has a 10-year appointment. On the other hand, he serves at the pleasure of the president, and I think the president has shown considerable tolerance here. He's been a hands-off guy. That's the way it should be. But the reason it should be that way is that the FBI director is supposed to have the integrity and the discretion to know when to make what public. And with days before an election, he violated long-standing practice and policy, issued a statement that was based on incomplete information, knowing he wouldn't be able to deliver the facts he alluded to before the election. It's impossible to believe that he didn't think it would have an influence on the election. He went ahead and did it anyway. The lack of judgment that shows is phenomenal.
Or the lack of judgment for her chief aide to be putting insecure
No, the
emails
question was about the
on
director
her
of the
husband.
FBI. Her
Oh, no,
chief aide is
actually,
not the
real
director of
question
the
is, the
FBI.
real question
Because
is,
you wanted to
why
be-
do the
answer
Clintons
the
keep
question,
ending up in
Jim.
sex investigations?
In a minute, aren't we
If
going to be
sex-
talking about
sexual
foreign
abuse
Americans? Doesn't it always
investigation.
come back to
In
Benghazi?
this
When
case,
we get to
it
Benghazi,
does.
Jim?
Or the
It
tax-
does.
oh, what
Why-
about the tax
why-
resolution?
when the
I
police
swear
hold
I'll-
it, when the
no more
police were
taxes.
investigating, Anthony
do the
Weiner,
means tax.
they found emails from the Clinton administration. Why is that? Do we have an answer for that? Why
Yeah,
is
maybe
that?
they were
the aide
planted.
isn't running
Why
for-
not? It's
for
as
an
responsible as
office.
anything the Trump
Okay.
people are doing.
Okay,
It
Mike,
is.
Mike, I'd like
Nobody
to hear
knows what
from
they
Mike.
are.
Wow. Here's
Mike-
the thing. If I was a deplorable, which I am, I would be arguing much of what Jim is arguing, which is that there was an obligation on the part of Comey to do what he did. If I was a Democrat, which I'm not, I would be arguing exactly what Stevens and John are arguing, which is that he went over the top and shouldn't have done this, and violation
Well,
of
then
this.
you
and
might be
violation
right.
of that.
Party affiliation make any
So it's really a
difference to that
partisan thing. I think what we need to focus on is the content of that. What were 650,000 State Department emails doing in Huma Abedin's Yahoo account, where Anthony Weiner, who is a clear security risk, had full access to them?
I don't know. I
That's
have
the
trouble
question.
believing anybody.
I don't know that that's the truth, by the way.
Emails on there.
I don't know that that's the
But
truth.
if you do the math on that, it's something. Somebody
It's a
said
lot of
something
emails.
Like over 400 emails a day for 4 years.
I get 350
Well,
a day,
didn't
so I
Bush
can
destroy
understand,
22 million
That's because they're always
emails?
mailing
You
lists.
don't
Oh, my
delete
God.
any of them?
Why did Bush destroy 22 million emails? There must have been a reason.
all I can say, John, is you're going back there. Let's say everything you
I'm
want.
not saying he did anything
Let's
wrong,
say-
but you think the
let's
number of
say-
emails means
let's say
something, and I'm
everything-
saying does
Let's
it?
say everything you would want to allege, if you could, for partisan political reasons was true. All I can do is fall back on what my mother taught me as I was growing up, which was that two wrongs don't make a right.
Well, I'd like to see Comey's emails with Rudy Giuliani or Rudy Giuliani's assistants who were current and former FBI with Comey and or officers
Does anybody
in
wanna
that
talk about
subdivision.
Here's another question for you.
Okay.
Why are we spending so much time here and in the media and everywhere else talking about Hillary's emails and not, number one, the issues that are affecting American people that they're really concerned about, and number two, if we're going to talk about Hillary's emails, why not talk more about Trump University?
Because
his sexual misconduct,
Bills?
all of the allegations, the contractors that have come forward that he's supposedly stiffed, allegedly, I'll say. And why aren't we talking about that? And just
Because
Hillary's
demagogues-
email?
Because
Is
Hillary
there-
Clinton
is there
cannot
a double
talk-
standard?
Hillary,
Is it misogyny?
it is a double standard. Hillary Clinton could actually go to jail.
Oh,
She could
come
actually go
on.
to jail.
Oh,
And there is
come
a
on.
Clinton
Trump
double
University
standard.
isn't
There
a
is a
sufficient
Clinton double
fraud.
He
standard.
has a trial coming out
It's a civil
November
suit. It's not a.
28th.
It
Yes.
can
not
be
a
a
criminal,
criminal
it's a civil
suit.
suit.
It can be a criminal suit.
And he has a
Fraud
trial
is a
coming
criminal
out
violation.
that may be
She's
criminal
actually,
in
she's
December.
actually under.
No, November 28th is his.
No, November 20th, and he has another trial coming up with Gloria Allred, I believe, in December.
The reason we're not talking about real issues is because a man who knows nothing about the issues and is a demagogue and is leading the fierce emotional passions of people who are angry in this country and who want a strong man and don't care what he can or will do, whether it hurts them or not, is built upon talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's all that they understand. And if you continue to repeat that Jim is a bad guy, which I don't believe, but if you repeat it long enough, and
He's
that's
deplorable.
what people, he's a deplorable. Well, you two guys
Yeah,
are
that's a result of being
That's
misguided.
what
You're
she kept
acceptable
saying.
deplorables
That's what-
because
yeah.
you're lost. But in America, we have people who are out there and saying they're so certain one person votes in 2 places because he knows the election is going to be cheated on, although we have 50 different states and all these thousands of counties, and there's almost no way in the world it could happen. We have all these people that say, oh, they announced an investigation and they are believing there's an indictment already to file against Hillary Clinton if she wins. We have lost the ability in our public debate to talk about facts that matter: retirement, health care, what our export politics, national security, where we should be
Obamacare,
putting
premium
our
increases.
troops. What do we do for our national infrastructure? What do we do for education? What is a good way to test our children? What's a good way to show that they can think? We don't talk about any of those things. That's because Trump can't. And Fox News and a whole group of the deplorables
John,
are
it's
running
not
this
like
election.
Secretary Clinton is talking about any of those things. She's out
Oh, that's
there.
not
you know,
true.
She's
That is
out
not
there
true.
calling
She
me a
is.
deplorable. And then she said, I
No, she
was
called you
dark,
by name,
misguided,
Mike
and I
Lane.
needed an
One
intervention.
time, one
2 days ago.
time.
No, 2 days ago she said I was dark, misguided,
Trump
and I
said
needed
that
And whether that's
an
true or
intervention.
not,
Trump said Hillary supporters are all evil.
I think
at
you
one
need
point.
an
Did anybody
intervention.
Well, no,
focus on that?
no,
You
but
can't
John-
decide
John's
whether you're
implying
with Jim or with us.
but she's saying these horrible things about people who are
About
supporting
poor
Trump.
Michael here.
And evidently about Michael. Perhaps she means me too. Perhaps
please.
all of
I
us
heard
have
her
been
mention
One
deplorable.
time, and then
Parmelee.
she backed
Well,
off her
she's
statement
painting a
and said
broad
she
brush.
probably shouldn't have
Aren't we
said
all
that.
part of the right-wing conspiracy that she
please,
came
please.
up
I
with?
think you are.
Okay, all right. Well,
I believe
She
it,
does
don't
a lot
you?
of she does a lot of
Do you
name
think-
calling for somebody
do
who
you think these-
deplores name calling.
do you think these will be affecting, and especially Comey's actions, the down ballot races?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Stevens?
Oh,
Big
no
red
question about
Stevens.
it. You know, the thing is that we do a lot of tea leaf reading in the political game. We try to figure out what's in the minds of voters, a little bit like lawyers when we're trying to figure out what the jury is doing when they're out deliberating. And then we find out typically we had no idea what was really on their minds.
True.
Having said that, it is a very commonly believed truism that voters in the middle like to split the ballot. So they cleanse themselves of having voted against what they believe their true party identity to be in one race by matching that party identity in another, and it kind of averages out. This time I think it's different. This time I think a lot of people are going to be rushing to the polls because they feel passionately that they have to vote against somebody. And they're going to make that statement as many times as there are boxes to check on the ballot. So I think that while I can't tell you what the outcome will be one way or the other, I think we're going to see a lot more people who poll after they've cast their ballots saying, yeah, I voted strictly one party. I didn't split it this time.
What about you, Mike? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the polarization of where the country is politically is pervasive throughout everything. Stevens has this one right. There's not a lot of attempts to be bipartisan, ticket splitting, et cetera. People are in one camp or the other. We are a divided country.
Oh,
We
now,
are.
by the way, I think that's important in one of our races because Barbara Comstock has come out and said she thinks that Donald Trump should quit the race. That might give some people a little pause and have them thinking, you know, I can vote for Mr. Trump, but I can't vote for somebody who explicitly said they were against Mr. Trump. Now, Lou Ann Bennett, Comstock's challenger, is also against Mr. Trump, but it's not shocking because she's a Democrat. So that might be one race where a few Trump presidential voters either decide to punish Ms. Comstock by voting for her opponent or just don't vote for her at all.
And I'll
Or
explain,
it could go the other way.
I'll explain to Stevens why he's
Democrats
wrong
voting for
on the
her.
flip side of the thing when we actually address that race.
All
looking forward to it already.
All right. But, you know, I heard, I believe, a Florida Republican in the establishment in Florida, local Florida politics yesterday saying, well, you know, if you're on a team, you wear the team's uniform and you go with the team. So I think what you said is interesting because, and true, because we are divided, and are we just like in this mentality of, you know, football and the Super Bowl?
Well,
And,
I don't know that
you know,
I don't know
or
that
the World
political
Series.
obsessives at this table feel that way. I think we, even our language in this discussion is probably less complicated than the way we approach it. But there are a lot of people that escape from the freedom of individual beliefs to feel comfortable on a team that might not be in their best interest, both parties at different times. And I think that's a real challenge to the pretense that a lot of people have in America that they're independent and they're free, when they're not, because they put on a team shirt. I think the older I get, the more right I have to be a Democrat who can disagree on issues that matter to me. I have my own mind. I know what I care about. I know what I think is important. But I don't think that's the American way anymore, despite the fact that a lot of people think, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. They don't. And to have low information voters in this election, who are those people? I mean, I don't think they should be cleaning my car.
Much less voting?
By having that team mentality, don't we make it easier, Jim, for someone to just say, I'm going to wear the red uniform or I'm going to wear the blue uniform? Therefore, I don't have to think, I don't have to inform myself, I don't have to analyze the issues.
I think you might want to look at it more as branding. If you know that one party is for limited government, lower taxes, and more freedom, then you assume that, well, from past experience, even though not all of our candidates have the same views on all the issues, there is a broad umbrella that you think of when you think of Republican, and one that you think of when you think of Democrat. A lot of people like the Democrat one, a lot of people like the Republican one. So if they haven't learned every single issue, every single candidate's position on every single issue, they figure, well, I'm generally for lower government and less taxes. I guess I'll vote Republican if I don't know differently. Unless a Republican has come out and said, I'm going to raise taxes. I can't think of anyone on the ballot this year who has said Republican, who has said they're going to raise taxes. There may be one, but Donald Trump is going to cut taxes. Donald Trump is going to reduce the size of government. So if we elect Donald Trump, you're going to get smaller government and lower taxes. But that's what people. That's the branding. That's the branding. That's the team, as it were. So if people vote for the Republican team, that's generally what they're going to get.
Okay, we have to go to a break right now, so we're going to end on that note. Don't go away, or if you do, come right back. We'll be back in just a minute.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember
what that flag you're waving stands for. One nation.
Under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty.
And justice.
For all.
in America, there's either room for everyone or it's not America.
Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
You'd never know it on the battlefield, but nearly half of today's military are National Guard and reservists. However, they can't answer our nation's call without their employer's support. If you're an employer, visit esgr.org and find out how to do your part. After all, their response depends on yours.
This is Mommy's bed. Me and Jenny were jumping on it. Mommy's gun fell on the floor. I was a cowboy. Bang, 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 bang. I said, Jenny, wake up, it's just pretend. But she wouldn't wake up.
I'm sick of this. I'm sick of dealing with you. I'm sick of
I work 6 days a week.
Who
do you think you
Stand
are?
up straight. Don't you ever talk back to me again! You just shut up!
What are you crying about?
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life. Teach carefully. We can show you how. Act Against Violence. Call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promise.
Okay, hon.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promise.
What kind of man are you?
I'm a father.
Look here, my father was a father, and he smoked his brains out in the house.
Watch as he blows those smoke rings on my little red face.
You probably have asthma.
Asthma? Schmasthma. I'm telling you, nothing's gonna happen to your kids.
I swear.
Don't swear when you're lying. You know very well that thousands of kids get bronchitis, ear infections, and even pneumonia from their parents' cigarette smoke. And didn't you promise your little angels you'd smoke outside?
Hey, Daddy.
Those little devils are just so sweet.
Do the right thing.
Please, smoke outside.
Until you can stop, go out for your kids.
Take the pledge. Call 1-800-513-1157.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that, with your help, can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
Welcome back to The Road To. We were having an interesting discussion. I hope you found it interesting before we went to break. We're going to go pivot now to back to the issues that voters care about. And John, you mentioned a few of the big issues, education and
well, there are issues I care about. I have the impression that voters are given issues to think about so they won't have an opportunity to think about other things. I think that's become the modern technique. And we have two candidates, basically. They're trying to drive up the negatives of the other. And they have an identity crisis in their messages, which is before certain groups they advance proposals, like Jim was saying earlier. But the overriding, the big message is the negative campaign. Beware what happens if this guy wins. Beware what happens if this woman wins. For me, I put at the top of the list, where are we going to war? Do we have to be in imperial America? What are we going to do about soil and water? What are we going to do about children learning issues? What are we going to do about our retirees and people living longer? What are we going to do about Medicare and Social Security? Are we going to be able to guarantee the pensions people are receiving from all the various entities, private and public? We don't discuss any of those things. And riding here, for instance, across Northern Virginia, you can't help but look at the infrastructure falling apart. Eisenhower years ago repaired America. I don't know if we've done anything since, falling bridges and tunnels. And I was a moderator the other evening for a discussion among candidates at the presidential, congressional, and local level in Leesburg. And I did it as a neutral. And it was interesting. The people brought a lot of thought to it, and I wish that our campaign was the kind of discussion we had that evening, because these people were policy wonks and the candidates were, and they weren't slamming each other. I'm sure they could have found things to say about each other, but they were talking about the issues. One person got up and very deliberately explained how many hours she spends in a car going to and from work, and one of the representatives explained what he thought we were doing about that. And then I asked him as the moderator, when do you think that'd come into being? 2020 would be the first time. So for 4 more years, that person's going to do. And whatever it's going to take, we should know that. Knowing that, it's easier to cope with it and deal with it and talk about it. We don't do that. In Europe, there's a much more sophisticated discussion that I think is being drowned out by the same thing that's happening in America: anger.
Well, John, and that's an important point too, because something I think anybody who's ever run, Mike, I think you know this, John, you've run, Jim, I don't know if you've ever run for anything, if you've been exempted so far.
They're deplorable.
But one of the things that I think is unfair to candidates is that the bar for how much negativity there is set by whoever chooses to go lowest, and the other one has no choice but to try to defend, and that includes respond in kind. When I ran the first time, a lot of negativity came into the race from my opponent, and we both got criticized for it. When I ran the second time, Tom Rust, he beat me fair and square. He didn't go particularly negative. I didn't feel a need to go particularly negative. I thought that was a much more issue-oriented race. But I've learned by the experiences I've had that the level of negativity is not set because the candidates both decide we're going to run negative races. It's whoever goes to the bottom first has no choice but to be followed by the other one there. Clinton has had no choice in this race but to run the kind of campaign she has, because she's running against a Bulgarian of the first order. This individual has chosen to go to the bottom right away, every step he can, nothing but negativity, nothing but vulgarity, nothing but this brutal mentality. And so she has no choice but to at least look like she's doing the same thing when she puts up a defense. And then the press falls right into its pre-scripted role and says both of them are just negative, and it's an unpleasant mess that we've been subjected to by two candidates who have relentlessly tried to go negative against each other. That is absolutely not what has happened. One went negative from the start, and the other had no choice.
Yeah. So when she went, followed the negative one.
Well, hold
Correct.
on. When she went negative against Obama last 2008, that was Obama's fault. When she went negative against Bernie Sanders, that was Bernie Sanders' fault.
Not the same thing to be
When she
critical
goes
to
after
go
Donald
negative,
Trump.
Jim.
But
She's gone personal.
we
She's gone
are
very
not
negative.
talking about negativity here. We're talking about, pivoting again. We're getting off the topic.
We're
It's so
everywhere.
easy to get off the topic and talk about negativity, really, even
Well,
here.
the question
But
was, why aren't we
question was
focusing on the issues
local
you think voters care more
issues,
about? And I think
and-
the answer is that
yeah.
the definition of the subject matter of the campaigns is set by whoever goes the most negative first. There's
Right.
no choice but for the other person to then dominate their message
Right.
with the same sort of stuff, even if all they do is defend. By the time you've done all the things Donald Trump has done to go negative as much as he has, and as much as that's forced Hillary Clinton to respond in kind, doesn't leave a lot of airtime for substance.
But that's why we're not talking about issues. But what would those issues be? And John
Obamacare?
gave a very good summary of what are some of the issues.
Well, it's a
that,
topic list, and
so
we don't talk about those
What
things.
about the state and local issues? You've held local office. You've held local office. What do you think are some of the state and local issues that the down ballot ticket candidates should be talking about?
Well, they talk about issues that are important to your community. Regrettably, when you run in a presidential year, the down ballot races message, often gets squeezed out. There's just, not enough oxygen in the room to talk about curb and gutter and pipe and sewer when you're, selecting the next president of the United States. So a lot of it becomes, as we were talking about before the break, straight ticket voting and things like that. I know that when I was elected to the board in Arlington County, I would not have been elected under any circumstances in a November election. I won because it was a special election. It was myself and my opponent on the ballot in March when nobody else was there, and people had a chance to actually listen to us talk about local issues, and that was the way I was able to win the race. But it's very difficult. The trend in Virginia seems to be going to having one election day with local elections on the same day as all the other ones. We used to be local elections were held separately. That's fallen out of favor because turnout was lower when you have a May election or a March election for local offices. But boy, I just think it's much better for local government if you have them separate so they're not drowned out.
That's a good point. What about you, Steve?
I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Of course, we have our local elections in the off years. So in Virginia, we get cursed or blessed if you're a political junkie with an election every single year. I think that's good because it does bring you the isolation that gives the local candidates the opportunity they need to be heard and address the issues that are distinct from the national stuff. We do see that there is a different shift in partisan ideology in Loudoun County, for example. Our local elections in the odd-numbered years tend to favor Republican candidates countywide, but as a county, we've been voting increasingly Democratic in the federal elections. So from a partisan perspective, I might like to see the elections all synced up with the national schedule because I just think more Democrats would be voting. But from the perspective of somebody who believes in good local governance as well as good national governance, there's something to be said for giving them the opportunity to take the stage to themselves. But there's also this point of voter fatigue. I think one of the reasons we get such low turnout in the local elections is that people just don't want to be subjected to continuous campaigning. And if you're in politics in Virginia, that's what you do every single year. It never, ever stops, and people do get tired of it. Yeah. I think balancing all the equities, I'd like to see Virginia go to an even number schedule like almost every other state.
Okay. Any other thoughts about local
I
and state issues?
I have one observation about local government, which Jim may share with me. And it is that when you're running for, say, a council seat, and I worked for Zoe Lofgren, who was on the council in California, San Jose. And she said, John, there's no ideology when there's a flood in the street and you're on the council and you have to solve it. A lot of those issues are where are we getting our water? What's a fair price? How clean is it? How are we dealing with it? What responsibility do you have to repair this sidewalk? Do we want sidewalks? Those kinds of issues. And I suppose somebody can find some ideological way to mix it up, and I guess they will.
As I said before, there's three local issues really when it comes down to it. It's pipe and sewer, it's curb and gutter, and it's the budget. Mm-hmm. And the budget's the one that gets a lot more sexy because it's bigger. But land use is
what
local.
What about education, though?
Well, it's a school board issue. It's not really a Board of Supervisors issue.
The county funds most
how did you pay for the schools?
Well, that's why I said budget.
Yeah,
it's a budget issue.
But when you talk about budget and local government, you're talking about schools. And that takes us, Marlene, to one of the 2 constitutional amendments that I think we should talk about that are proposed for Virginia.
And we're getting to that.
Yeah, but we're running out of time. I want to jump ahead if you don't mind, because I think this is an important issue.
We're not running out of time.
Well, it feels like we never get the time we need to say everything that needs to be said.
Okay, well.
We have 17 minutes remaining.
Gosh, how do you know?
But, if you want to, can you hold that thought till we're going
I don't know.
We're going to go through the prescription.
If we're voting, could we talk about Obamacare?
I think the predictions, no. The
It's not on the ballot.
No, okay.
The predictions will take, we've had a lot of talk
tired
about
of it.
The predictions,
I think a lot of us are tired of Obamacare,
guys,
yes.
Okay, the predictions will probably take us maybe 5 minutes at the most.
Well,
okay?
I can go through
And then
mine
we
real
can
quick.
spend the other 12 minutes or whatever we want to talk about with the
You know what? I want to ask a question. Has anybody seen that fabulous local government commercial from a guy running for the Travis County Board of Supervisors in Texas?
Oh, yeah.
It is the guy who he's just a real issues geek, and his wife is saying, please reelect this guy and get him out of the House. That is a perfect example of good local government, I think.
Wow.
I commend it to our audience. Just
is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. It's all over Facebook. Just look for the best local commercial of the year. And
why don't we let Mike do his predictions? He always spends a lot of time, and he's more neutral than the rest of us.
Actually, Mike gets the best, I think, prediction rate.
Although I didn't, I think
Tony claimed he got it, our producer last time. But anyway, Virginia 8th.
Well, if it didn't happen on camera, it didn't happen.
I think you were not on the show is what it was. But anyway, for the Virginia 8th Congressional District, Don Beyer, the Democrat, versus Charles Hernick, the Republican, and Julio Garcia, the Independent. What is your prediction? We'll start with Jim. No op-eds, just the straight prediction.
I'm going to go with a hopeful prediction that the Republican wins.
Okay, just because he's on that team?
He's got the shirt.
You never know.
Okay.
I know Charles Hernick. Charles Hernick is a friend of mine. Charles Hernick is a fabulous candidate. Regrettably, that's a plus 40 Democratic district, and I don't see that it's really going to swing 40 points this time around, even with Charles Hernick being a fabulous candidate. So Don Beyer.
All right. And I get to predict too, and I actually personally know Don Beyer. I think he's a great legislator. He was lieutenant government. Of course, I'm on the D team, but I'm not. And I really don't know.
Oh, wearing your Hillary pin? I didn't know.
And my Luann Bennett. Julio Garcia and Charles Hernick. I don't know either of them, but
nobody knows Julio.
It is
but nonetheless, Julio will get 2 to 3% of the vote.
Okay, and it is a very blue district. I'll go with Don Beyer at about 56% of the vote.
63.
Yeah. I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah.
I agree with Mike. I think it's going to be a slam dunk.
Okay.
Don's a nice guy, former ambassador, former car salesman, former lieutenant governor, former car salesman. He's earned his way into the spot he's got, and he's a nice guy. I'm glad he'll have the job as opposed to the other 2 candidates, but it is a bit of an indication that the criticism about how the elites are in power might have some substance to it. Don is one of the elites. Nice guy.
So you think
he's a nice elite.
You think
He's a nice
63%
You're a nice
as well?
Oh yeah, 63 sounds about right.
Okay, I'm trying to keep score so for the next time. Okay.
I'd say 63%. And one of the things I like about Don is that he has actually punched through on some of the environmental issues and led the way on showing that he knows the content and can explain it and has proposals that I think might make a difference in Virginia, which is environmentally challenged because of Dominion, among other wasteful things we do in Virginia.
He's still selling cars, right?
Did you
Yeah.
did you
Cars that run on gasoline.
That's business. You're for business.
Oh,
right?
I'm just making an observation.
I didn't walk here today myself.
He's still advocating pollution of the.
Did you want to give a percentage for?
Sure, why not? 51.
51% for Julio.
It's my hopeful. Not for Julio. No, Charles. For Charles.
I'm telling you.
Well, that'd be a real expense for Julio. Okay, let's get on to the
All
next
right,
one.
so the next
this is
one,
an easy one.
Barbara Comstock versus Luann Bennett in the 10th Congressional District, and we'll go with you this time.
I think she wins by a point. I think it'll be that close. And I think we have to see what the spread is for Hillary at the top of the ticket to know how realistic that is. I think she's in a very difficult race, and as a first-time candidate against an experienced hand who got endorsements, it'll be a real challenge. But I think that in Virginia, if the polls hold, and it's a volatile year, she can squeak out a win.
Luann.
Okay.
Luann can, yes.
All right.
I'm going to take the other side. I think Comstock keeps it in the single digits. I think that's going to be such a decline from the slam dunk victory she had in her first race to get this job that'll make D-Trip wake up and realize that they should have recruited a somewhat more compelling candidate. I think Luann's great. I think if she wins, we'll be the better for it. I think I've seen stronger candidacies, and I think D-Trip will try to find a stronger candidate, maybe put more money in it, and it'll all be too late again.
Okay, so by how many points?
Yeah, 5.
5?
Yeah.
For Comstock?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make the prediction that Luann will win. I know her personally. She's wonderful. She'll make a great congresswoman. I have met Barbara Comstock. I have heard Barbara Comstock talk and debate. I don't like her voting record, so I'm going with Luann by 2 points.
This is scary. Stevens and I are looking at this exactly, or just so I don't exactly copy him, I'm going to say Comstock by 6. But I was thinking
Care
5.
for a bet?
But I was thinking 5. Yeah, this is a harder race than Comstock had the last time, primarily because of the environment. I agree with Stevens that Luann may be a nice woman, but they recruited the wrong candidate. She's just got too many political bags surrounding, what her residence is and things like that, and whether she really, is the proper fit for the 10th district. The Washington Post endorsed Comstock. That's that's probably a 2-point bump.
Paper.
And I think the Sun Gazette was the one who put it best. They said, look, Comstock is the natural heir to Frank Wolf, and I think that's what the district still looks for.
And Frank Wolf has endorsed Trump.
If people knew how true that really was, she wouldn't win.
And Comstock is not Wolf. But anyway, Jim.
Well, I think there's a reason the Democrats don't have a stronger candidate in that district. It's because it's a pretty good district for Republicans, and Barbara is a fantastic candidate, and I believe she will get a 55% of the vote.
Okay. All right. And I'm sorry I forgot. Please forgive me. I apologize to our producer, Tony Barney. He's predicting Don Beyer, 59%, and Barbara Comstock, 53%. Okay, we're moving on. Jerry Connolly. This is a no-brainer because he's not opposed to anyone. So I don't know that we
let's skip
just
that.
go by that.
He has a very active write-in.
Gotta be a last-minute write-in candidate.
Oh, he
does.
Yeah.
Okay, and he'll get how much of a percentage? Are you
0.8%.
predicting that the writing candidate will win?
No, I would say 12%.
Okay.
I think it's interesting.
Who is the writing candidate?
I believe there's more than one, which is another problem.
Well,
I think it's
that's a
interesting
if you were
that,
going to win a
only a
write-in
few years
campaign.
after we were told that real Virginians all love NASCAR, that there's a Democratic member of Congress who's actually running unopposed to represent Virginia. What does that tell you about what the notion of real Virginian really means?
Uh-oh. Now we're not on.
I don't know.
The idea that anybody could claim that we fit some stereotypical model and that anything else is outliers is utterly debunked by the fact that we have an entire congressional district where nobody even bothered to run as a Republican. This is not the monolithic state that people who like to see.
I don't think anybody
Okay.
thought the 8th and the 11th districts weren't fairly full of Democrats.
It's hard to win a gerrymandered district. You get some sacrificial lambs who say, okay, I'll put my name on the ballot, but it's.
I mean, you could win the districts, but there are clearly a lot of Democrats in them.
Yeah.
It's hard to recruit a really credible candidate in a gerrymandered district to be the opposition.
Okay, we have a little over 8
That was part of
minutes
our
left,
deal.
so my prediction
Their
was
deal
a
and our
little
deal.
bit wrong, but we're going to get
Right,
to the
everybody deal together.
constitutional amendments and then the presidential, so let's just go ahead with constitutional amendment question 1, the right to work. We're going to spend brief times talking about this.
Let
right, Jen?
Stevens do it because he was very anxious to discuss it.
Okay.
Because everybody cares more about this issue than any other. But the fact is they should. They don't care about it as much as they should, I think, but they should. The reason is this will be yet another opportunity that the Republicans are going to try to take to use the Constitution of our state to restrict freedom. The last time they did it was the Marshall-Newman Amendment that would not let anybody who wanted to get married get married. They tried to stop it in the name of misguided, mostly religious ideology. This time, it's an attempt to defeat what the laissez-faire free marketeers tell us is the right role of government in the decision-making, deal-making process in the private sector, which is no role at all. If labor and management come to the table and negotiate a deal such that management is convinced the best deal it has open to it is to require membership in a labor union, that's something they should be allowed to do without government saying, we will do better. We will look over your shoulder and limit what the options at this negotiation can be, because government should regulate business. That's nuts. And anybody who says they're a laissez-faire free marketeer who backs this is a fool and a liar and a hypocrite.
Interesting point.
So
Having
you do
said all
think
that, I
corporations
believe
are
it.
people?
Okay, you do believe it will pass?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
As,
okay.
as the resident fool, liar, and hypocrite, let me say that.
deplorable.
And deplorable.
This doesn't fit a deplorable
This really is about it. Look, Virginia is a right-to-work state. It's enshrined in our statutes. There are coming attempts to repeal that. What is a right to work? A right to work means that you can get a job, you can be employed by someone without them having the right to require that as a condition of that employment, you join a union and pay dues to that union. You should have the right to work. So what are we doing? The question is nothing different from what we have in state law, other than knowing and anticipating that a move to repeal that is on the horizon, enshrine it in the Constitution so that it will become more difficult to repeal that at some point in the future.
That's
Even when
what's
that's the
problem.
majority view.
Yeah,
So no, it's not a majority. It's all it takes is a majority to pass a referendum.
but then that's-
so the question, as people face it on election day,
Wait. Is it easy
do
to
you or
undo
do
in the
you
Constitution
not
or not?
believe that Virginia ought to be a
He's saying
right-to-work
it's
state?
harder.
Well, then
gonna
Vote
be
yes on question.
enshrined.
Vote yes on question 1 if you believe Virginia ought to be a right-to-work state, and if you
Right
ought
to
to
work
have the
for
right
less.
to have a job without being forced to join a union.
Well, let's
Okay.
try, let's
thing to have
try
to
that.
have
Do you
requirements
think it
for
will
employer.
pass, yes or no?
Easily.
And you think it will pass, yes or no?
I think it will pass. I think Virginia
And
supports the
you
right to
said
work.
it will-
Well, I don't know what it'll do, but I'll tell you why it shouldn't happen.
No,
it shouldn't.
well,
no,
we have
wanna-
5 minutes, so
Well,
we
I want to
have a-
address in 1 minute the question about what this is really about. It's the right to work for less.
Yes.
And if you go into a workforce in which that workforce has decided how it works, you know what it is, you pay the dues. Just like if I move from state A to state B and they have a law, I don't get a chance to dissent from it. And the reason they want it to be a constitutional amendment is because they're afraid the General Assembly will change hands, and this makes it more difficult to reverse this backward policy. And everywhere where you have the ability to bargain and to have organized collectively, you have a higher standard of living for the workers, even those that are not in union shops.
Okay,
So
I'd
you
like
want
to
to force us
address
to join
this.
everyone to
Okay.
join a
I
union.
want you to respect
Okay.
majority
Okay.
rule.
I've never been.
Okay.
So far I've never
All
been
right,
forced
I'm
to be
gonna-
in a
I'm
union.
going to have
no.
the last word on
If
this.
I wanted to be in a union,
because
that would be fine.
I was
but
a union steward for CWA in an over 200-person office, and I will tell you why it should not pass. It's been a law since 1947. It's not been changed. I don't think that, unlike Stevens, I don't think that an employee should be mandated to join a union. But the union has to represent all people, whether you belong to a union or not. So basically, those who don't join a union are getting the benefits of having their wages and benefits negotiated for them by the union, because the union negotiates on behalf of all employees.
You're a wobbly.
Members
You're
or
a wobbly. I didn't
not.
know it.
Okay,
the
and
union
Employer should be
steward-
allowed to
and
opt out
when
to
you
say.
file a grievance against management, and who does that? The non-union members, just as much or more than the union members. The union steward has to represent them in that grievance against management. So basically, they are people that are just taking a free ride, getting the benefits. I think they shouldn't have to join the union. They should be left to negotiate wages and benefits on their own, not getting the union.
I concur.
And they have to represent themselves when they have a grievance against management.
So
and
that
I
would be a
guarantee
yes
you,
vote for
most
the
of
amendment.
That is
them
an
will join
anti-union
the
position.
union.
That is a wrong position.
No,
that is a
most of
wrong
them-
position.
Well, that when people I
You
when I
you
tell
compromise
people that,
you compromise the
well,
strength of the workers in the collective
no,
bargaining
no, because
situation.
as soon-
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, when I represented people
I don't
that
care.
didn't belong to the union, they joined.
No,
because
no.
they saw
if it's
the
a union
error
shop,
of their
if it's a
ways.
union shop, go someplace
Well-
else. If you don't join the union, you're not in the
Well,
workforce.
it may- I don't
Terrible
know.
thing to have to do what your
Okay,
employer
we
says
have
to keep
2.5
your job. I mean,
minutes
be
left.
there
I'm
on
enjoying this
time,
show right
do
here.
the work.
Meals
join the
tax.
union.
Meals tax.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
If the meals tax in Fairfax County passes, the tax on prepared foods, which is everything from food trucks to McDonald's to restaurants to the deli counter at your
10%.
local
Familiar
Safeway,
with the
will be 10%. It'll be
Okay.
4%
So yes
on
or no,
top.
will it
Vote
pass?
no. Vote no.
You?
I'm glad to hear that.
And it
Because
won't
we have
pass.
to
I don't
talk
believe
about
it'll
the
pass.
presidential race.
I don't think there's any precedent for voters approving a referendum to tax themselves more. I think it fails for that reason.
And I'll take myself out of this
Yeah,
one.
what Mike said, he nailed it.
I'm against the meals tax. I don't
Okay.
think you should be going at people's food.
All right, Hillary Clinton versus
Small
and Tim
businesses.
Kaine versus Donald Trump and Mike Pence. John, quickly, what do you think is the outcome of the election?
I think Hillary wins. I think it's a
By-
tough race. It's very volatile. 3 points nationally. I think she gets 290 in the Electoral College.
I think she gets 297 because she gets Florida, she gets Virginia, she'll win the Electoral College. The popular vote will be close enough that Trump will insist that he either won it or that it was stolen from him, but he'll never seek a judicial remedy because it's more valuable to them for 4 years to be able to say that she's not really the president than to get a decision that ultimately rules that, yes, actually she won legally, fair and square. That's what I think the outcome will be. And by the way, I'm happy to be voting for my friend Tim Kaine on Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, me too. I'll go with Hillary and Tim. I will split the difference with you somewhere around 280 for the Electoral College. Mike?
I think Clinton Kaine, roughly 282. In that calculus, I'm giving her both North Carolina and Michigan, either one of which could flip. If it does, the entire election flips.
Does she get Florida?
No.
I think Trump is going to win by 1% overall.
Okay. All right. Well, that wraps it up right on time. Any final words going around?
It's too bad that the other constitutional amendment didn't get any time. That's the one that...
The meals tax.
No, the constitutional amendment that deburdens spouses of dead service people from property tax.
Well,
Sounds like a
what-
noble thing. The trouble is you have to pay for it at the local level, and it was the state legislature getting the PR for that. Nice move, you guys.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
and I'm
We're-
just a little uncomfortable that it's not means
Goodbye.
tested.
See you next time. Vote November 8th, please.